Ann Arbor Inclusive is produced in part with the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues and CTN. The views and opinions expressed in the show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Commission or CTN. For more information about the Commission on Disability Issues, visit a2gov.org/disability resources. If you have program topic suggestions, please email a2disabilityissues@gmail.com.
Hi, and welcome to Ann Arbor Inclusive, a program of the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues. We're really happy to be bringing a great show to you today. We're talking with the University of Detroit Mercy about a program that they have. It's a multidisciplinary collaborative program between the engineering students and nursing students, where they create devices for people with disabilities to make their lives more independent and worry-free. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome our three esteemed professors from University of Detroit. We have Molly McClelland, the professor of nursing. We have Daryl Kleinke. He is the professor of mechanical engineering, and Megan Conrad is the Claire Booth Luce professor. Folks, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good. I'm glad we're all together. I'd like to first start out with finding out a little more about the program. Tell me about how this came together and really what it's all about.
I can start with that. I'm Molly. I'm the nursing professor on the program. And about 12 or 13 years ago, myself and Dr. Kleinke joined the faculty at University of Detroit Mercy. Dr. Kleinke was assigned to teach the mechanical engineering capstone course, where all of our mechanical engineering students had to take this course where they are charged with designing and building something, as mechanical engineers do. And those guys can speak more to that in a minute. But Dr. Kleinke had a heart for people. And he comes out of the Ford industry, the automotive industry, but he wanted to teach our students at Detroit Mercy something a little different, because at Detroit Mercy, our mission is to help others and to meet the needs of people in the community. We're a Jesuit Mercy University. And so Dr. Kleinke had a heart to help people. And so he had envisioned changing the course a little bit to build assistive devices for people who had physical disabilities. However, he'd never worked with actual clients before. We call them clients now. I would call them patients. And so he reached out to the College of Health Professions, and I was a new faculty at the time. He says, "Hey, I need some help. Can somebody come help with the human and the medical aspects of this?" And I raised my hand. I said, "Well, that sounds really cool. I'll do that." So I joined Daryl that first year as the healthcare consultant on the team. And I was working with Dr. Kleinke and his students. And during that first year, I thought, well, why am I just consulting on this? Why am I not having my students work with his students? And then I'll just coach my students. And that's really how the multidisciplinary collaboration had started.
And how was the program first conceptualized and created?
That's a Daryl.
Yeah, I can answer that one. My colleague, Nassif Reyes, preceded me in teaching capstone design, and he actually had a relative of his that had a physical disability. And so, in fact, that particular case, the relative was a wheelchair user, and she had one child already, and the second child was on the way. And if you think about even using a power wheelchair, how do I take the toddler to the park while I've got a baby in my hands? And so the students designed this really cool device that allowed her to carry two children at once with a wheelchair. I thought that was really awesome. And so I started to build on that. And as fate would have it, Molly and I were starting at the same time, as she mentioned, and it just seemed like to be the right way to go. And here we are today. So it's been quite a journey. So
we all understand, what was the device that you built for her?
So that was, again, my colleague. It was, if you think of it like, you've seen those motorcycles with sidecars on it. So it was like a power wheelchair with a sidecar. So the toddler could ride along in the sidecar while the mom held the baby on her lap. So, and allowed her to do something as, it's to us, what would seem so simple, just go to the park. But if you're using even a power wheelchair with two children, not so simple.
Yeah.
I'll just mention one thing that when I started in this, I thought, oh, well, I wonder, certainly there's plenty of devices for people out there. I hope we've got enough, problems to solve as we go along. And to my dismay, there are many, 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 many problems that need addressing. And so we've had, unfortunately, good for our students to work on, but I wish there were more solutions for people with disabilities than there are today.
I agree. As a chair user, I'm definitely interested in seeing if you have a picture of the sidecar. I've never heard of that, and that's amazing. I'm sure she drew a lot of good attention to her device as well. So the collaboration between nursing and engineering doesn't seem like a natural fit. So it definitely is unique. Who wants to speak on that uniqueness and why? I think Molly, you touched on it a bit.
Yeah. If I could, I think I have a little story that maybe kind of illustrates the circumstances. When we first started this program, one of the clients we had was a wheelchair user, and their caregiver came with that person to the classroom, and we had both engineers and nurses in the classroom. And the person came in, and my engineering students immediately went and started looking at the chair. How could we make it better, cheaper, faster, lighter, stronger, all that kind of stuff. And the nurses said to the engineers, maybe you guys should talk to the person sitting in the chair and ask them what they think. And that kind of, and I think that kind of summarizes the whole thought. As engineers, we teach, machine design and how to deal with materials and machines. And we need to think more about people. And I'll say from the nursing side, I wish they would ask engineers for help more often. I hear things like nurses getting injured, trying to roll patients in beds when engineers could design devices to do that. So I think the two professions really need each other, and I wish we worked together more often. So it doesn't seem like an unnatural fit. It seems like almost a perfect fit to me, that we support and help each other.
The other thing that we're trying to do at the university level is because as professors, we're trying to instill in our students how to be the next people in their discipline, how to be good leaders in their discipline. But what we are lacking at the university level is how to train those students to use the discipline and the knowledge that they've learned to collaborate with other disciplines. Because once you're out in the world, as everybody knows, you don't work in silos. You have to work with other people. Like Daryl was just saying, if we could start combining those disciplines in a better way, we could build better products, regardless of what discipline it is. And like Daryl was saying, we could build better healthcare products and assistive technologies and automobiles and industry and all kinds of things if we could get different disciplines to speak to each other at the same table. And that's a little hard to do because even within engineering and nursing, our language is very different. When I first started this program with Daryl, I had no idea what a CAD design was. I didn't know what that meant. And all of these, SWOT analysis and all these GAD things that they do. Well, I've learned, and then I think that the engineering students have learned what therapeutic communication means when you're talking to a client, or what's a decubitus ulcer when you're talking about, somebody who uses a chair all the time. So we're teaching these students way beyond just the discipline that they're learning, through the 4 years that they're at the university. We're really giving them an opportunity to apply what they've learned and to start practicing how to implement that in a multidisciplinary manner.
Okay.
So I can just add to a little bit to that. Yeah. And that from an engineering perspective, one of the things we struggle with, we teach these core courses, but solving open-ended problems, identifying what the problems happen to be, and then designing solutions for it is really a bit of an art and a science as well. And I think the engineers learn a lot from the nurses, how to extract from the clients, what the real issues are, and then start to formulate. I would argue that formulating the problem, the engineering problem, is just as challenging, if not more challenging, than solving the problem.
Yeah.
I would
Go
add
ahead,
one more
Megan.
thing to take it a little bit further. So I'm in the mechanical engineering department as well, but also have a background coming from both manufacturing and then PhD in biomedical engineering. And from the biomedical standpoint, I want the students, the mechanical engineering students, though we know that most of these students will probably end up in the automotive or similar industries. Like, my goal with teaching them biomechanics and interaction with humans and human bodies, and then their exposure to nursing students who have a better understanding of injury or illness or disease, they kind of at least are introduced to these skills. And then if they are working in automotive and design, hopefully that's like planted the seed in the back of their mind, since they've worked one-on-one with a client with a disability, that they have that idea that we're not just designing for people like us, or we're not, even in university research, often we test subjects that are all university students because that's who we have access to. But I want these students thinking when they're designing, there's other people we need to consider. We need to be inclusive of our whole entire community. And so I want that seed planted. And that's really my goal, as an instructor and as part of this class, that they're thinking beyond the traditional design mechanisms that they've been taught.
That's what's so cool about the program as a whole. Just this combination of a perfect storm, right? So let's talk about some challenges that the students from either discipline or both face as you guys collaborate. What are some of the challenges?
Well, one of the biggest challenges we have is scheduling, because obviously the engineering curriculum and the nursing curriculum are on very different tracks. They've got classes at very different times. So the logistics of getting the students together is challenging. The way that we've solved that is the nursing students take the course, they register as an NUR, a nursing course, and the engineering students take it. It's required for the engineering students. It's an elective for the nursing students. And then it's just an awful lot of independent study and a lot of work outside of the actual classroom. So, Dr. Kleinke, Dr. Conrad are actually physically teaching in the classroom, specific days of the week. Almost every semester during those same times, my nursing students have clinicals, and they can't miss clinicals. They're actually in a hospital somewhere for, 8 or 12 hours a day. So what happens is the teams have to be very creative in meeting at off time. So they're meeting in the evenings or meeting on the weekends, which works out well for the clients too, because the program works with actual real clients who also have real lives. And so we break up, we usually have anywhere between 4 and 6 teams of nursing and engineering students, and they're assigned to a client who has a physical challenge. And then the team, we make them or request that they have different roles. One of them is the communication liaison, and that person usually has to coordinate, okay, when can everybody meet? And so they're figuring, sending out doodle surveys or whatever when everybody can meet. But that's actually proven to be kind of fun, because a lot of times they're either meeting at the client's house or they'll meet at a restaurant. And what happens during those times is relationships are formed and friendships are built. And we've had a lot of teams where the students end up being really good friends with their clients, and they have continued the relationship to this day. So that's a challenge, but it's been overcomable.
Okay. And what about challenges in building assistive devices, Daryl?
Yeah, so I can add to that. So just and to build on what Dr. Conrad was talking about when they leave here, I've done a lot of consulting in the auto industry, and one of the questions I'll routinely ask groups of engineers in the auto industry is how many of you have ever done an actual clean sheet of paper design from scratch to finish? And only about, I'll say less than 10% of the hands go up. So I tell our students that the biggest challenge they're going to face here, that they may never, this may be one of the only opportunities they'll have to do it for their next 5-10 years of their career, is going from completely unknown, identify that problem and fully develop a solution from start to finish. And we tell them that the biggest challenge is going to be on that final presentation day. The client has to like your device. They're going to have a voice in your grade. This is unlike any class they've ever had. If you think about traditional classes, especially in engineering, given A, B, and C, find D, and the answer's in the back of the book. And students will come into all three of our offices and say, do I have the right answer? What should I do? What's the next step? And we'll say, we don't know. This has never been done before. You're designing something brand new. So that's a huge challenge for them. And I think it's a challenge for any engineer. And as Dr. Conrad said, as they go into their careers, we hope as they're developing these solutions, they're thinking about, the folks they worked with in this class. And as Dr. McClellan just said, they become somewhere midway through the course. It's no longer about a grade. It's no longer about satisfying the professor. It's we want to make sure our client is happy and satisfied, and we've solved the problem for them. And we say, Eureka. That's to me, that's what engineering is all about. That's what nursing is all about. And that's the lesson we hope that we take from this course.
Yeah. All right. So let's shift gears and let's talk about the human impact. Can someone speak on the impact that this program has had on people with disabilities and their families?
Yeah. So I'll take that one. It has had a huge impact on the clients' lives and their families. And what we've found over the many years that we've been doing this is that sometimes finding a design is the most challenging because our clients have been using wheelchairs or assistive technology for a long time. And when we come in and meet the client, they're like, yeah, I'm good. And we're watching them. A couple of years ago, we had a client who was a wheelchair user, and he was really active at flipping houses. And he would buy houses and he would go in there and he would renovate the house all in a wheelchair. And he didn't have a vehicle that was converted for a wheelchair. He would scoot from his manual wheelchair into the seat of the car, disassemble his entire wheelchair, put it in the passenger seat, drive to where he was going with his feet. He had, with the foot pedals, he used his hands. He had devised these things himself to do the brake and the gas. And like, okay, there's these kind of people on the road. Oh, okay. And then he'd get to where he was going. He'd take his wheelchair out, reassemble it, go back in, work on whatever house. And it was amazing to watch how he had adapted to his injury. And so it was, it's those kinds of inspiration and like just the determination of life that is so inspirational for us.
Yeah. Daryl, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Well, yeah, as Dr. McClellan mentioned earlier, I worked in the auto industry for many years, and I never thought about people doing and this client wasn't alone, disassembling their wheelchair and handing it across, putting it in the passenger seat so they could drive. It just tears up the car. There's all kinds of things it catches on. Never crossed my mind when I worked in the auto industry. Now I think about it all the time. Another issue came up that I kind of never thought about. If you pull into the gas station and you're too far away from the gas pump and you're a person with a disability, you got to assemble and disassemble your chair just to reposition the car. All kinds of things come up that never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And I also mentioned, we forget about the caregivers so often. There are many cases when there's a especially when the man has the disability, the wife has to try and lift them in and out of beds or transfer. So caregivers come to mind all the time. So I'll say when we do our final presentation, if you're not touched, if you don't have a tear in your eye, it's like it's pretty tough, even for a salty old engineer like me.
I think this will probably go to Megan, but what is the role of the impact of having the endowed Claire Booth Luce professor added to the team?
Yeah, so the Claire Booth Luce professorship is the Henry Luce Foundation gives out grants for universities to facilitate programs to bring women into engineering. And so before I was at Detroit Mercy, Daryl and Molly and some of their colleagues had worked on a grant proposal to get a professorship, an endowed professorship. And it specifically, they wanted to expand this assistive technologies program, bring in female faculty to, I think, as maybe a role model to the students. And so I happened to be working in the area and read the job posting and thought, gee, that job posting is right up my alley. I had, like I said, come from both manufacturing, but rehabilitation and biomechanics. And these are the types of projects that I was interested in. And so I was fortunate to see that posting and apply and be able to join their program. And now we've been establishing the Center for Assistive Technology, trying to conduct more assistive technology development and also disability research on campus. And it's provided us kind of the resources, I guess, first of all, for them to have another professor focused on the program, and then also for me to, expand a little research, have some money to put towards these research initiatives.
Okay, all right. How about some examples of devices that you guys have created? Or I don't think it's been mentioned yet that that the devices that the students are building can't already exist. This has to be a new innovation, correct? So
That's right.
Give us a couple examples of devices that you've built for folks.
I can add one, probably my favorite over the years. We've done all kinds of things. We had a particular client that had suffered burn injuries such that there was no, I learned all this from Dr. McClellan, no elasticity left in his skin. He could not move his arm. And the students and with the help of the nurses talked to him and said, what would you like help with? And it just, again, touched my heart. He said, I just want to be able to eat with my family. I want to be able to eat soup. And because he was unable to move his arms in certain ways, you just think about the actions that we take for granted, right? Of moving your hand and scooping. Right. He was unable to do those things. The students designed a special spoon that had, you can think of it like a turkey baster, had a bulb on it. He could put the spoon in the soup, squeeze the bulb, it would draw the soup into the bulb. He could then transfer it to his mouth and he could eat independently with no one helping him, and he could eat soup. It was just the coolest thing.
That is cool.
Yeah. And just a number of presentations like that. I'll just add one more experience. We had we do final presentations, and the students were presenting an exercise device that would help the person build its upper body strength. They were presenting, and the faculty were here really giving the students a hard time about, did they do the analysis right? Was the engineering right? It was going kind of bad for the students, and the client turned to the faculty and said, I really don't care what you guys say. I love this device. These are the greatest students of all time. So the students all got A's. They were very happy that day.
Yeah, I'm sure they really get to know their clients well if they're talking about an entire, not even a semester, it's the year, right? It's the full course.
Yep.
Yeah. How about you, Molly? Do you or Megan, do you have anything to add on devices?
Yeah, I do. The two that come to mind, one, the gentleman that we were just talking about that disassembled and reassembled his wheelchair. When we first met him, we thought, oh, it's obviously going to have to be something that's going to make that process easier. No, he didn't want that. You know what he wanted? He wanted a blanket that would keep him warm because he was outside and in these homes that he's flipping, and the homes didn't have electricity and stuff, so he was getting cold. So the students designed a blanket that would stay warm that didn't have to be plugged in. So it's that kind of innovation. And another one, speaking about family members, is that we had a client that had fairly bad Parkinson's, and it was her mother that was a caregiver, and her mother was in her 70s or 80s. And they like to go places, they like to go shopping or something, but the mother didn't have the strength to get the wheelchair in and out of the back of the trunk because they just had a regular sedan. So those students built a device that could be put into the trunk and automatically would come out, and the mother would put the wheelchair on this device, and then the device would slide the wheelchair into the back of the trunk. So the mother didn't have to lift it up. So that was an example of how we help a family giver in that
Yeah.
case.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We see a lot of similar problems and issues come up year after year, and those are really important. It's really interesting to see how the students approach the same problem from a different,
Right.
different vantage point. But some of my favorites are the ones that are really unique to the client. So right now, we have a client who's a wheelchair user, who's an artist and paints on kind of unique shaped items like guitars. And the team has developed an easel that not only works with his wheelchair, he can wheel up to it, but also that he can use a system of magnets to arrange to hold the object that he's painting on the easel. So I think that's, it's something that he's able to use and manipulate and not worry about knocking the easel and whatnot. And another one, a couple of years ago, we had a client, they designed a cane that could also double as like a railing. So he needed to get from his garage a few steps up. And I think he could like hook the cane. He could use the cane getting from his car to the door, and then he could hook it on the wall to go up. And I thought that was pretty creative, a dual purpose application. So
Very cool. Well, this has been really, it's been fun learning about the intricacies of the collaborative program. But I have to say that when I found out about the program, I worked in the disability industry, if you will, for 25 years, and I hadn't heard of a collaboration like this before. And it's really inspirational, and you're teaching, like you have mentioned, you're teaching the students way more than building a device for a client. I imagine these students are going to remember this program when they graduate, on top of a lot of the other things that they've done at the university. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. It's been great learning more about the collaborative program. This is Tom Hoatland. I am your host, and we thank you for joining us on Ann Arbor Inclusive, a program of the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues. We thank you, our viewers, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Ann Arbor Inclusive.